Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Munib Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. The United Nations Security Council has urged Armenia and Azerbaijan to resume dialogue to end the latest round of heavy fighting over the disputed territory. UNSC President Abdul Abari read out a press statement on the conflict following an emergency session of the Council. Earlier, both Azerbaijani and Armenian leaders rejected the possibility of talks. Nearly 100 people, including civilians, have been killed and over 200 wounded since fighting started on Sunday. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has urged the UN General Assembly to declare an international day to combat Islamophobia. Speaking virtually at a meeting of UN Alliance of Civilizations, Qureshi called for criminalizing willful incitement to hate and violence. US President Donald Trump and his challenger Joe Biden have fiercely clashed in one of the most chaotic and rancorous White House debates in years. In the first of three debates in Ohio, Donald Trump declined to condemn white supremacist and violent right-wing group. Biden called Trump a clown and accused him of stoking racist hatred. The US Special Envoy for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, is headed back to Doha in a bid to break the deadlock in the intra-Afghan talks. In a tweet, Khalilzad said the Afghan people and international community are watching closely and expect the negotiations to make progress. India has registered 1,179 COVID-19 deaths and more than 18,000 cases in the past 24 hours. India's coronavirus fatality count has jumped to over 97,000, with infections tally crossing 6.2 million. In Pakistan, 5 people have died from the virus overnight, taking the toll to 6,479, with over 312,000 cases. Globally, coronavirus has claimed over 1 million lives and infected more than 33.5 million people so far. News in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. The United Nations Security Council has urged Armenia and Azerbaijan to resume dialogue to end the latest round of heavy fighting over the disputed territory. UNSC President Abdul Abari read out a press statement on the conflict following an emergency session of the Council. Abari said the Council supports the role of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and urges both sides to work closely with them. Earlier, in an interview, Azeri President Ilham Aliyev flatly ruled out any possibility of talks, while Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said negotiations cannot take place amid continued fighting. Armenia said fighter jets belonging to Azerbaijan's close ally Turkey had shot down one of its Su-25 warplanes, killing the pilot. Turkey and Azerbaijan have refuted the claim, calling it absolutely untrue. Nearly 100 people, including civilians, have been killed and over 200 wounded since fighting started on Sunday. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has urged the UN General Assembly to declare an international day to combat Islamophobia. Speaking virtually at a meeting of UN Alliance of Civilizations, Qureshi called for criminalizing willful incitement to hate and violence. Qureshi said Islamophobia is unmistakable in the manifestos of far-right and neo-fascist parties. It said the magnitude of the problems continues to grow partly by a rise in populism and partly through unregulated social media platforms. He said freedom of expression does not grant the freedom to insult or hurt others. In Pakistan, security forces have killed 2 terrorists in an intelligence-based operation in the Kesh district of Balochistan province. The military's media wing, ISPR, said the terrorists were involved in the killing of civilians and attacks on security forces. It said a large cache of arms and communications equipment were recovered during the operation. Earlier this month, the army killed a terrorist commander, Ihsanullah, near the inter-district boundary of North and South Waziristan. Now, US President Donald Trump and his challenger Joe Biden have fiercely clashed in one of the most chaotic and rancorous White House debates in years. During the debate in Ohio, Donald Trump declined to condemn the white supremacists and violent right-wing groups. Biden called Trump a clown and accused him of stoking racist hatred. More about this first of the debates in this report.
The long-awaited battle between Donald Trump and Joe Biden is marked by rancor. They clashed over COVID, crime, healthcare, and even their families. Moderator Chris Wallace never established control of the debate, with Trump repeatedly ignoring his calls to let Biden speak. The president bulldozed his way through the 90-minute debate, trying to goad Biden, claiming that Democrats are trying to steal the November presidential election, declining to condemn white supremacist groups when asked to do so.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
to do
specifically
that,
do it?
Well,
go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it.
In a fiery exchange over healthcare, Biden called Trump totally irresponsible on managing COVID-19 and said the president is only worried about masks in the interest of protecting his own health, not others.
The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just want to make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make sure.
Mr. President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
You pick
You'd be surprised.
the wrong guy, the wrong night at the wrong time.
Listen.
2 men frequently talked over each other, with Trump interrupting, nearly shouting so often that Biden eventually snapped at him.
Vote now.
You're gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
would you answer that
because
question?
the question
you want to put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
your,
man?
listen.
2 contenders did not shake hands, adhering to protocols on social distancing because of the coronavirus.
Well, now the US Special Envoy for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, is headed back to Doha to try and break the deadlock in the intra-Afghan negotiations. In a tweet, Khalilzad said the Afghan people and the international community are watching closely and expect the negotiations to make progress. He said increased regional connectivity, trade and development will follow once peace prevails in Afghanistan. The US envoy said the intra-Afghan talks are to finalize a roadmap for Afghanistan's political future and a permanent and comprehensive ceasefire. Meanwhile, the Taliban say the dialogue hit a snag after Kabul refused to acknowledge the DOHA Pact as the base document of the intra-Afghan talks. Now, in Afghanistan, at least 14 people, including women and children, have been killed in a roadside bomb explosion in Daikundi province. Local officials say the victims were traveling to a shrine when their minibus struck an explosive device. In a statement, the Interior Ministry blamed the Taliban for the attack. No group has yet claimed responsibility for the explosion. The country has been witnessing a spike in violence since the Afghan government and the Taliban started direct talks in Doha earlier this month. Prime Minister Imran Khan has called for an extension to the G20 debt relief initiative for another year in the wake of the coronavirus crisis. In a video address to the Financing for Development Summit on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, Khan said the UN should set up an investment facility to mobilize $1.5 trillion annually for developing countries. said the developing countries will require an additional $2.5 trillion to recover from the pandemic-induced contraction. Khan said Pakistan has injected over $8 billion to protect the poor and keep the economy going despite the country's financial constraints. 5 people in Pakistan have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the last 24 hours, raising the death toll to 6,479. The Health Ministry says 747 more tested positive overnight. The ministry said the number of active cases stands at 8,903. It said out of over 312,000 detected cases, nearly 297,000 have recovered so far. It said more than 136,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province, while over 99,000 in Punjab so far. Now, India has registered 1,179 COVID-19 deaths and more than 80,000 cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, coronavirus has claimed over 1 million lives and infected more than 33.5 million people so far.
India remains the second worst hit after the US. The country's coronavirus fatality count has jumped to over 97,000, with infections tally crossing 6.2 million. In China, the National Health Commission has reported 90 new cases, up from 12 a day earlier. Australia's coronavirus hotspot of Victoria State maintained its steady downward trend in new infections. Victoria recorded 13 new cases, sharply down from a peak of more than 700 cases lodged in early August. In the Americas, New York mayor said the city will fine residents or visitors up to $1,000 fine if they refuse to wear a mask in public. The rate of positive COVID-19 tests has risen above 3% in New York City for the first time in months. Over in Brazil, authorities have reported just above 32,000 cases and 863 deaths in the last 24 hours, taking the fatality toll to nearly 143,000. While Mexico's death rate continues to be high, the country reported 4,446 new cases and 560 deaths overnight.
Moving on now, the Palestine Liberation Organization has called on the Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Aboud Gheit to immediately resign. PLO Executive Committee Secretary General Saeb Erekat says Gate's praise for Arab-Israel normalization deals has compromised his credibility. Talking to the media, Erekat said he met with the ambassadors of Jordan, Egypt, Morocco and Tunisia. Erekat said the pacts by the UAE and Bahrain violate the agreements and resolutions of the Arab League and the Arab Peace Initiative. He said Gate tried to legalize the normalization agreements, saying they pave the way for more such pacts. Meanwhile, Hezbollah has invited media to visit the sites which Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has claimed are the group's missiles depot. Earlier speaking at the UN General Assembly, Netanyahu accused Hezbollah of having a missile factory in Beirut. Hezbollah's chief Hassan Nasrallah rejected Netanyahu's remarks and said they aim to provoke Lebanese people against the group. The alleged missile depot turned out to be a gas canister factory after media visited the site. Nasrallah said if Hezbollah had possessed even a single missile, the group would have made it public. He said Hezbollah doesn't store rockets irresponsibly near Beirut port or any gas station. He said Hezbollah knows how to handle their weapons. Now, Iraq's Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi has confirmed the US and EU have threatened to shut their embassies. In a cabinet meeting, al-Kadhimi said continuous rocket attacks have forced a number of organizations and diplomatic missions to think about closing their embassies. The Prime Minister ordered an immediate investigation into a missile attack on Baghdad airport, which claimed the lives of 5 citizens. He said the possible embassy's closure can terminate military, cultural and economic cooperation with Baghdad. He said that this situation is dangerous in the face of the challenges Baghdad is experiencing at the moment. Iraq's Green Zone is often the target of terrorist attacks as it houses government institutions, embassies and Baghdad International Airport. More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now moving on with the news stories. Russia says the United States is putting forward unacceptable preconditions on extending the New START treaty. In an interview, Russia's U.S. Ambassador Anatoly Antonov said the conditions do not take into account Kremlin's concerns. Antonov said Washington's inaction created the time pressure in extending the New START despite Russia's proposals. He said there is a possibility the U.S. will increase the number of nuclear warheads if the treaty is not extended. Now, North Korea says it has a reliable and effective war deterrent for self-defense. In his address to the UN General Assembly, Pyongyang's envoy Kim Song said peace can only be safeguarded when one possesses absolute strength to prevent war. Kim said peace and security of the Korean Peninsula and the region are now firmly defended. He said the country is now focusing on developing its economy. The envoy said it is a matter of fact that North Korea badly needs a favorable external environment for economic construction. But he said Pyongyang cannot sell off its dignity just in hope for brilliant transformation. Now, British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab says the United Kingdom is determined to push North Korea to denuclearization. He made these comments after visiting the heavily guarded demilitarized zone that divides the two Koreas. In a Twitter post, Raab said Britain supports South Korea's efforts to improve relations with the North. The Foreign Secretary met with South Korean counterpart Kang Kyung-hwa in Seoul to boast bilateral ties. During the meeting, Raab said the two countries can work closely on global challenges, including climate change and security threats. The two ministers also discussed various issues, including trade, investment and antivirus cooperation at the 5th Strategic Dialogue. Raab is on a state visit to South Korea and Vietnam this week. Kuwait's Crown Prince Nawaf Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah becomes the kingdom's new emir. Kuwaiti cabinet named Prince Nawaf Al-Sabah as the new emir as per the constitution of the country. Prince Nawaf is succeeding his brother who passed away yesterday while receiving treatment in the United States. The Crown Prince has assumed power after taking the oath in the parliament. Previously, Sheikh Nawaf has served as Defense Minister, Interior Minister and Deputy Prime Minister of Kuwait over the years. The 75th debate at the United Nations General Assembly has ended in New York. United Nations General Assembly President Volkan Bozkır says the debate closed in strong support for multilateralism. Delivering closing remarks, Bozkır said courtiers laid down a complete agenda which supports the priorities of the United Nations. Bozkır said many political leaders recognize the importance of a unified approach as the most effective system to address global challenges. He said issues like COVID-19 pandemic and climate change can only be solved through cooperation among the nations. Bozkır said he was pleased to hear so many member states recognized the opportunity to collaborate better for future crises. Now, Britain and Canada have imposed sanctions on Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko and 7 other senior members of the government. In an interview, Raab said the UK and Canada have sent a clear message against Lukashenko's violent and fraudulent regime. He said London and Ottawa do not accept the results of the rigged election. The Foreign Secretary said they will hold accountable those responsible for the thuggery against the Belarusian people. Meanwhile, the Canadian Foreign Ministry said the government of Belarus has conducted a systematic campaign of repression. The new sanctions include a travel ban and asset freeze of individuals. Now, Nokia has signed a deal with Britain's biggest telecoms group, BT, to replace Chinese Huawei as the UK's largest equipment provider for 5G networks. In a statement, BT's CEO said it is crucial to make the right technology choices in a fast-moving and competitive market. Nokia CEO said the two firms have collaborated for over a quarter of a century to deliver best-in-class connectivity to the people. Under the deal, Nokia will supply base stations and other network equipment to allow its customers access to the internet. In July, the UK government announced all mobile providers will be banned from buying Huawei's 5G equipment after the 31st of December. It said all cellular companies in the UK must also remove all 5G kits of the Chinese firm from their networks by 2027. and business stories. Shares in Asia Pacific are trading mixed as investors are reacting to the release of China's manufacturing activity data for September and possible second wave of COVID-19. The mainland Chinese stocks have dipped, with both the Shanghai Composite and the Shenzhen Component shedding. Over in Japan, the Nikkei 225 and the Topix Index slipped around 1.5%. Australia's ASX 200 tumbled more than 2%. But in South Korea, the Kospi rose nearly 1%. The Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong also gained over 0.5%. Now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. Well, that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News. Take care.